Hello and welcome to this presentation on gamification and mobility behavior. In the first part of this course, you could get an overview on digital solutions for sustainable commuting. And now the main aim of this second presentation is to delve more into the concept of gamification and its role in the field of mobility. In this presentation, I will introduce the concept of gamification and discuss how it can be used to influence mobility behavior toward more active and sustainable choices. We will look at why gamification can work, how it is implemented in mobility contexts, what effects it can realistically achieve, and where its limitations lie. But the first question is, why talk about gamification in mobility anyway? What is the context factors who leads to integrate gamification into mobility behavior and the mobility sector? Well, as we know, the transport is a major contributor to CO2 emissions and urban congestions, while on the other hand, physical inactivity has become a significant public health challenge. Many daily mobility choices, such as driving instead of walking or cycling, are habitual and difficult to change. Even when sustainable alternatives exist, people often stick to routines. In that context, gamification is increasingly discussed as a soft policy tool that can make active and sustainable mobility more visible, more engaging, and also emotionally more rewarding. Let's see now, what do we mean with gamification? Gamification refers to the application of game design elements such as points, badges, leaderboards, or challenges in non-game context in order to motivate and engage people. Importantly, gamification does not mean building a full game. Instead, it means adding playful structures to everyday activities. In mobility, this usually means that real trips like walking or cycling or using public transport are enhanced through digital feedback or digital challenges rather than replaced by a separate game environment. Gamification can influence behavior by activating several psychological mechanisms at the same time. It provides immediate feedback on actions, supports goal setting through challenges, and makes social norms visible by showing what others are doing. It can also support identity formation, for example, when someone starts seeing themselves as a cyclist, and foster a sense of community. Importantly, gamification can link individual benefits, such as fun or rewards, with broader societal goals, like reduced emission or improved public health. From a behavioral perspective, gamification works best when it combines intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivators include rewards and points, while intrinsic motivators relate to enjoyment, mastery, meaning, and social connection. Gamification also overlaps within the concept of nudging, which aims to steer behavior without removing freedom of choice. Users remain free to decide how they travel, but the design gently encourages more sustainable options. In practice, gamification in active mobility often relies on a limited set of recurring elements. These are typical elements that you may have already encountered, and they are not only applicable in the field of mobility, but in a lot of other fields. These elements include points for active trips, or badges for milestones, streaks for repeated behavior, challenges linked with specific goals, and sometimes leaderboards in order to foster the challenge perspective of a game. These elements are deliberately simple, as the goal is really to aim at behavioral engagement and to integrate them into the everyday life of the people taking part in a challenge or in a game, for instance. Gamification can be implemented at different levels. At the individual level, smartphone apps or wearables can track steps, cycling distance, or public transport use and provide personal feedback. At the organizational level, workplaces or universities use team challenge to influence commuting behavior. And at the city or regional level, municipalities may run gamified campaigns or integrate rewards into smart city platforms to encourage active and public transport use. What are the effects of gamification? Empirical studies show that gamification can lead to measurable behavioral effects, particularly in the short term. This includes increased level of walking and cycling, reduced car use for short trips, and greater awareness of environmental and health impact. Gamification can also improve motivation, self-efficacy, and positive attitudes towards sustainable mobility. Despite its potentials, gamification has clear limitations. Behavioral effects may fade once rewards are removed, especially if intrinsic motivation is not supported. Gamification can also exclude certain groups, for example, due to digital barriers or physical limitation, or they tend to engage more the people that are already active in the field rather than the ones who are hard to reach. Ethical concerns such as data privacy, surveillance, and manipulation must be also carefully considered, especially in the case of tracking. Most importantly, gamification cannot compensate for unsafe infrastructure, long distances, or structural barriers to active mobility. To conclude, gamification can make active and sustainable mobility more visible, engaging, and rewarding. But it is not a silver bullet. It can support behavioral change, particularly in the short term and when embedded in supportive contexts. Long-term impact, however, depends on careful, ethical, and inclusive design and/or integrating gamification into broader mobility, health, and urban policies rather than treating it as a standalone solution. This presentation builds on recent academic literature from transport psychology, behavioral economic, and mobility studies, including systematic reviews and applied case studies on gamification and transport and physical activity. So if you're interested in delving more into one of the other aspects of gamification in mobility, then you have this list of references. Please have a look at one of the other articles that can enable you to look into more details into some aspects. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed this short input on gamification in the field of sustainable mobility. If you want to know more about how we implemented gamification in the context of our various pilots, do not hesitate to look at the third part of this course. If you want more information about our Green Pass project, do not hesitate to go on our webpage or to contact our project coordinator, the Institute for Transport and Logistics. Thank you very much and bye-bye.